want to thank all the people out there on the front lines who are risking their lives to support us and support our world that we live in. And also, I think it goes without saying that our thoughts and prayers are with all of you out there who are suffering. We'd like to think that this draft hopefully can provide you with a few moments of enjoyment over the coming weeks, something that you can spend time with your families watching. We're excited about that opportunity. Also, on a more lighter note, we'd like to thank Kevin Byrne. This is his retirement, and we are so fortunate that he's been a part of this organization for the last 25 years. I know that he's helped me so much prepare in so many different ways over my time with the Ravens, and his value to me and his comfort, his guidance, his advice will be missed. And so we all love Kevin, and he's a special part of this organization. We've been working hard over the last 2 or 3 months getting ready for the draft. We embrace this opportunity that we've been given to do this together as a staff. Our coaches and scouts have been working very hard evaluating players, which is what we do. And we started meetings this week. We're actually meeting via Zoom. We've had our first set of meetings this morning, and we'll continue after this press conference, finishing up with our meetings. And hopefully by Friday, we'll have our board stacked. We anticipate having about 185 players that we would consider to be draftable players for the Ravens, which is really, really good from a numbers standpoint. We're excited about the players in this draft. I would consider this draft to be a very deep draft in many respects. We can talk more about that. But I think this is a great opportunity for us to get better as a football team. I think Coach feels the same way. I think our coaches and scouts are excited that we can do this together, and we'll see how it all kind of plays out.
All right, great. Thanks, Eric. Let's start off with Dave Ginsberg. Dave?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. Eric, obviously different times. You don't have any of the players visiting the complex. Could you just tell us how different this draft is going to be than the ones past?
Well, Dave, I don't think it's really going to be that much different from what we've been accustomed to. We had the opportunity to meet with so many different players at the Senior Bowl in the East, West, and at the Combine that we really prepared, I think, to be the best we can be. And I think the thing we come back to is first and foremost, and it's been this way ever since I know I got into the league, and I'm sure the other guys can relate to this as well. It's really about the tape, how the guy plays first and foremost. And we'll spend a lot of time watching these guys. We'll talk about it as a staff. We have the opportunity to talk on the phone. We have the opportunity to talk via Zoom. And we did a lot of work in person in February and also in December to get ready for these meetings as well. So, there are some challenges associated, nothing major. But we're excited about the opportunity, and we think it's going to work out well for us.
Jeff Strubeck?
Eric, a logistical question. Have you decided where you're going to run the draft, or is that kind of still a decision that you're trying to work through?
Well, the answer is we don't know. That's going to be up to the league and up to Dr. Alan Sales from the NFL office to make those determinations. We'll be prepared for any opportunity that exists, whether that's here at the facility, another location. We'll be ready to make picks when the time comes.
Jameson?
Eric, obviously in free agency, it sounded like a lot more the focus was defense. How much do you feel this draft can help you on the offensive side of the ball?
Well, we think there's a lot of really good players. Obviously, the receiver class is prolific by many people's standards, and so there's probably 25 draftable wideouts in this draft. There's some very, very talented running backs, offensive linemen, tight ends. So we're going to look at the board. We're going to assess the strengths and weaknesses at every position when we're on the clock, and we'll pick the best guys for the club.
All right, we'll go with Ryan Mink.
For Eric or Joe, I know you said that you guys have done so much homework already that the pandemic won't have that big an influence, but in terms of late round picks or undrafted guys not being able to have the pro days or those medical rechecks, is that where it's going to have the biggest impact?
I'll let Joe answer that, but I don't think that'll be a big factor for us. Go ahead, Joe.
No, I don't think so. Historically, we've done a good job with the guys that aren't invited to the combine and some and non-all-star guys. Our scouts do a great job of getting the information from their sources at the schools, the trainers, the strength coaches. So we have a lot of estimated 40 times. Our analytics crew can help us with that as well. They do a great job getting information. So I think we can get the information necessary. Ron is able to assess it, our trainer, in terms of medically. And we still scout those guys. Our coaches have looked at guys that didn't go to the combine, and we've done a lot of work on those as well.
Jerry Sandusky.
Eric, everybody always, every draft talks about, the single most important thing is tape, is the tape of a player. Is there a chance this is actually a more effective draft because you are limited in some of the other things you can do, and you are going to have to put so much weight on what you see as far as guys playing football?
Well, it's going to be old school. It's like the 80s have come back, and we're just going to sit here and watch tape. I mean, I've been doing that in this office now for the past 2 weeks, and I know Coach, who just lives down the street, he's been doing the same thing. He calls me up, and we talk about these guys on the phone, and the tape is what we have right now. And I think our video guys, John Dubé and Mark Bienvenu and Colin Ferguson, those guys, they got us set up pretty well. They anticipated this really well. They got us set up really well to do our jobs effectively. And it's been a lot of fun for me to just kind of grind every single day. I don't have a lot of people knocking at this door other than my kids when it's lunchtime. But, it's been quiet, and we just do our work. We watch these guys. We rank the players. We talk about their strengths and weaknesses. And that's what we've been given. We've been given that opportunity. We have that information, and we're going to use that information.
Jonas Schaefer.
Hey, Eric, you guys have been linked by, mock drafts to running backs in the first and second round. I just wonder, with your team's emphasis on running, the running game, the success, what makes a high-value running back to you guys where, the rate of attrition in the NFL is so high for some of these guys?
Well, I think we set the record for rushing last year, so it's going to be hard for us this year. So we're trying to find as many good players as we can. I think now that position is critically important to our offense. I mean, all the positions are important, but, to be a good running back, you've got to have the ability, obviously, to play in the NFL. You've got to be big and strong and physical, but you've also got to be durable. That's a really important, I think, criteria for that position, and also be intelligent. And, we feel like we've got a really good group of running backs on our team, and it'll just basically be who's available when we pick. And, there are certainly running backs all throughout the draft in each round, first round all the way through the seventh round, guys that we think have the opportunity to come in and help us be the best team we can be. And we'll look at that.
Aaron Kazanitz.
Hey guys, thank you for doing this for us. This question is for John. I'm curious what the off-season program could look like if you've been told by the NFL what you're able to do, and particularly what the process of the teaching process for some of these young players might be if you aren't allowed to have them in person.
Right. We have not been told yet. I think it's up in the air, just like it is with everything else with this situation. We've been told possibilities. We're kind of preparing for all that. The new CBA changed up some of the rules as far as what you're allowed to send them in their playbooks, some of the video teaching overlays, talkovers and things like that. So we're sending that stuff out already as we go. Then we just have to see what we're allowed to do. We'll be ready. We'll do all the stuff that the colleges and the schools are doing. We're building tapes right now. We're building our playbook. Our playbook is pretty much built. We're doing that, virtually over the last couple of months. So we'll just kind of play it by ear, but I'm hopeful that we'll have an off-season program. I'm thinking that we might. It just depends on the trajectory of the situation with the coronavirus and whether socially we're allowed to get back together. I think the league would like to get us back together, but they're not going to do anything that's going to put anybody in jeopardy. So we're going to be ready for any contingency.
Cliff Brown.
Yeah, for Eric, last year I remember you saying that you felt like you need to take more swings as an organization as wide receiver, and you did that. This year with the draft being so deep at wide receiver, do you feel there's another draft where if you decide to take more swings, you can? And did that play into maybe not feeling a sense of urgency to bring in a veteran wide receiver, knowing that there were so many wide receivers in this draft?
Well, we like our receivers first and foremost. I think Miles and Marquise and and Willie, and we brought Chris Moore, Jaleel. You know, we've got some guys that we think are going to make another jump. We really like that room. So do we feel the urgency? We probably feel that with every position. We want to be the best we can be at every single position. This happens to be a wide receiver class with a lot of really good players. And if we're on the clock and we think that guy is the best player, then we'll probably pick him. And it just makes us better. And hopefully we can build our offense to the point where, as we say, you know, we'll be undefendable and tough to play defense. And, you know, I think there's a lot of opportunities for us to do that. I think our coaches have found some guys they're excited about. I know our scouts have found some guys they're excited about at the wideout position. So we'll just see how it falls.
Charles Walker.
Yeah, hey guys, thanks for doing this. This is really for both Eric and John. I mean, I think the consistent message that we're all hearing in all facets of life is that we kind of don't know what's going to happen. You know, you could start late, you could be without a significant portion of your off season. The season could be imperiled. Is that something that's on your mind, and does it really play into draft prep at all?
It doesn't play in the draft prep for me. You know, I think I've learned from coach, you know, it's down on the board downstairs, win what's important now. And I know the draft is probably the most important thing right now for this organization. So I'll focus on that, and then we'll worry about what happens next when that's the next thing on the plate. Coach?
Yeah, I'm just looking. I mean, everybody thinks about it. I wouldn't say, Charles, that you don't think about it, but it's not something that I'm concerned with, in the sense that we're getting ready for a season, and I'm assuming we're going to play. And I'm assuming we're going to be back at the soonest possible date, and therefore be ready for it to get the most out of it. And honestly, looking at it as an opportunity, I mean, we're all going to be in the same boat. I mean, none of us are going to have an advantage over anybody else. So whoever makes use of whatever the situation is the best, gets their team ready the best, starting with the draft and then with the development of our players. That's who's going to win the most games. So, like, you know, we just look at it that way. I look at it competitively. If it's shortened, how are we going to get more out of the time that we're allotted to be the best we can be the first game and be better than the people we're playing so we can win? Just looking at it like that. So it's an opportunity. People are going to do it differently. It's not something that people have had a lot of experience with, because it's going to be new for everybody. And I'm very hopeful that we can find a way through faith and effort to do it better than the other guy and win games. So that's kind of what I'm thinking about every day.
Luke Jones. All right, Mike Preston. All right, we'll move on to Mark Viviano.
Hey guys, thanks. John, Eric kind of touched on it for himself about being at home, and maybe once in a while the kids knock on the door. What about for you? What is this whole experience been like for a guy who's used to driving to the facility, and just kind of big picture, what it's caused you to think about?
Right. Well, aside from the obvious concern, you know, for people, and then, you know, basically daily trying to acknowledge that and be prayerful and reach out to different people and stuff like that. I mean, Ingrid's the one who's out. She goes out to the grocery store and she goes to the Target and the Walmart and all that. And she's kind of fighting that fight. She doesn't make me do that. So I'm very grateful for not having to be a part of that, because she comes back every day whenever she goes out pretty frustrated, you know, with the whole thing. But she's helping neighbors with groceries. She's been shopping for friends, buying groceries for neighbors and things like that. She's been the total hero of the family. I've just been holed up here trying to do what Eric says, just trying to do the job and sprinkle in some yard work to be a help, you know, as best as possible, and follow the rules as much as possible. But it's been kind of interesting in a little sense, Mark, because I think you realize, you know, it's kind of a change of pace. So I'm trying to find the good. I'm trying to find what God's trying to show me in all this about, what's the message here? And the message for me is, in some ways, is you don't have to drive into the office every day to get the job done. And there's a different pace, a different style, a different format you can use than I would have thought about before. I mean, before it would have been business as usual. Now it's not. I think hopefully, I mean, for me personally, I'll look at things a little differently when we come out of this whole thing, just as far as lifestyle and priorities and how time is spent. And I would like to think that, you know, we all would do that, even as a country. kind of change our thinking going forward, coming out of all this, and use it for everybody's benefit.
Luke Jones.
Yeah, guys, there's been a lot of talk about inside linebacker, and in a perfect world, yeah, you'd love to find a Pro Bowl 3-down kind of guy. But with the way that you were able to mix and match last year, even dropping a safety into the box, does that maybe leave you with a little less urgency to find that, quote, 3-down guy? And can you maybe focus a little more on elite traits rather than just finding a complete linebacker?
Go ahead, Joe. Joe.
Yeah. I think, when we look at the board, there's obviously guys that can do all three things, play the run, cover, and blitz, but I think when we look at the guys, throughout the draft, there's players that can help us in specific roles. There's guys in the middle in mid rounds that, can come in and cover, maybe play the run. I think, knowing our coaches, the versatility that we play with on defense as scouts, we're able to identify, hey, this is what this guy can do for us. So this is what we believe this guy can do for us. And then we give them to the coaches, and they either marry their opinion to it or they tell us, I'm not sure. But I think with our versatility and the way Wink and those guys use guys in their specific roles, it helps us evaluate players that maybe can't do all things but can do one thing well.
Mike Preston.
Would you be inclined to go up and trade, make a trade on draft day in the first round, because you got a lot of picks?
Yeah, I think it just would depend on what that opportunity was. Who is the player that's available? What can we get? In exchange for making a trade? What kind of picks could we get? So yeah, we love to make trades. I think we made a lot of the last 2 years, especially. I think we've made a ton of trades, and it's been really fun for us. We've actually, I think, we benefited from some of the trades that we made. So this year we do have a lot of trades. We have the opportunity maybe to go up and get a guy. Normally when a guy starts to fall, what you find is other teams are trying to trade for him too, and they're usually willing to give up more than you're willing to give up. So, I think back a couple of years ago, we tried to make a trade for a guy who was falling a little bit, and we didn't get him. And fortunately, the guy we got ended up being really good, so it worked out. Sometimes the best trades are the ones you don't make, and we just assess case by case and see what we can do.
John Eisenberg.
Yes, my question is for Eric. And I was just curious if the situation you're in, the Ravens are in, impacts your draft strategy in any way. And by that, I mean coming off a 14-2 season, by all accounts, a serious Super Bowl contenders. And you've got your great rookie, young quarterback on his rookie deal still. So it's a great set of circumstances. I'm just wondering if that impacts your draft strategy anyway.
John, I don't think so. We try to look at each draft and just basically the mindset of what can we do to build our best team moving forward. Every roster is different. You lose players in free agency. You gain players. Guys retire, be that as it may. And you just try to adjust. And so we're trying to find the best guys. We're trying to assess what our strengths and weaknesses might be. Where do we need depth? Who are going to be the guys that play special teams? Who are the backup offensive linemen? Who are the starting linebackers going to be? What does our 5 technique look like? Who's going to be our 3rd wideout, our 4th wideout, our 5th wideout? And we just try to answer as many questions as we can with the draft. And, that's what works out pretty well for us. We talk about this, it's not just basically something that we talk about over 2 months. This is an ongoing thing. It starts basically when we get to training camp, and it never ends until we go on vacation. We're always talking about the roster. Coach is always down in my office. I'm in his office. He's talking to the coaches. I'm talking to Ozzie. We're talking to the scouts. We meet all the time, and we just try to build the best team we can build.
John Stepner.
Yeah, hey guys, thanks for doing this. This is for Eric. Not really a draft topic, but Antonio Brown working out with Lamar and Marquise last week. Just your thoughts on them getting together and working out, and your interest level in Antonio Brown.
You know, those are in-house things. Those are my feelings, personal feelings about that situation. I don't really feel the need to share that with you all right now. And as far as like players, free agent players, we wouldn't talk about those guys right now. It doesn't really serve any purpose for us to talk about players that are available right now. There's really no benefit to be gained from doing that. So I think I'll just leave that one alone.
Garrett Downing.
Hey, Eric, going back to the question of trading that Mike asked a few questions ago, how do you balance the consideration for a position, for example, wide receiver that's considered a deep class? You know, if you liked a receiver who may start to fall, how do you balance the decision to go up and get him while also knowing it's a deep class, you could hold on your picks and maybe try to take more shots in the second round, for example?
Well, I think, you know, Kenny Rogers just passed away. I think he's a great singer. He had that song, The Gambler. You got to know when to hold them, know when to fold them. And that's just kind of what it is, you know. It's a gut thing. It's an instinct thing. We've got some people in there that help us with the analytics associated and the value associated with making picks. But you've got to assess the board and the value of the players still available and who you think you might get if you make the trade later on versus, you know, do you want the player and how's that all going to shake out? So it's a nuanced thing. I think, you know, experience is definitely a factor over the years, being able to call on other experiences and things that have happened in the past. And you just ask for advice, you know. And I've got Coach there, and I've got Ozzie there, and Steve and Dick and Joe and Pat and George and Nick and all those guys. And we just weigh every different opportunity and hopefully make the best decision we can for the club.
Pete Gilbert.
Yeah, hi guys. This is for all three. Wondering, given all the limitations we're all facing as you go into this, you know, complex process of trying to do the draft, have you found that there have been some positives and some things that are actually easier, and then maybe you'd even take forward and use going forward for the next however many years?
Well, you know, I'd say from my perspective, one of the big positives, just there's been so much communication. We're all apart, and you know, it's easy to get in your office and know you're going to see someone at some point during the day, and you'll run into them and talk to them about stuff, and it may pass you by. I think when somebody's got a question and we need to talk, you know, Eric picks up the phone, calls me. I've had conversations with John and George and all the scouts and all the coaches. So I think the communication is got to be, you know, stay constant during this. And I think it's this process and this situation has helped that from my perspective.
The question was, you guys have picked at 25 or later in 7 of the past 10 years. Has that posed a challenge for you as far as, you know, kind of guys falling off the board before you pick? And have you developed an overriding strategy? You haven't always kind of picked in the mid to late 20s over the past 10 years.
I heard part of Eric's answer. It broke up on me a little bit. Sorry about that, guys. But, you know, I think the biggest thing we do as scouts for Eric and John and Ozzie over the years is, you know, we try to give them all the information and stack and give them our rankings and our order and get the guys in the right spot. And whether, I think Eric said, like, whether you're picking 6 or 26, you got to have the guys lined up to pick. And I don't think it's challenging and it's fun. You watch some good players walk off the board before you're up, but you always know you're going to get a guy that falls to you, hopefully, and it's exciting to watch it happen. So I don't think there's a change in approach. Just getting the guys in the right order for the Ravens.
Bobby Trossett.
Hey guys, thanks for taking some time today. This is up to any of you who want it, but the process of not replacing, because he's probably irreplaceable in your eyes, but Marshall Yanda, whether it's in-house, in the draft, kind of take me through what the thinking is there.
Coach, you want to talk about that one?
Yeah, I mean, the thinking is it's going to be really hard. You know, I think he's irreplaceable. Bottom line, you can't just say you're going to plug another Marshall Yanda. Probably the same thing applied to Ray Lewis and Ed Reed. So to me, he's in that category. Our offensive line is very important. It's a very critical element of our team and our offense. It always has been. And I think even more so now than ever, the way we're built. And we need to be great up front, you know, and taking Marshall out of that equation is not just a one-guy deal. I mean, he's a force multiplier. He exponentially makes the offensive line better because he makes all the players around him so much better, including the quarterback and the rest of the offensive line. So we're going to have to really do a great job there. That's one of the biggest challenges. It's job 1 or 2. You know, we've got to make sure that we do a great job of making sure the interior offensive line is all set. So how you do it? You do it the old way. You know, we got to look at all the players, try to find the best fits. I don't think we necessarily have to concern ourselves with what the rest of the league is looking for in the offensive line or any other position really, but just what we're looking for, the type of player we want. Somebody like Marshall would be great, and we'll see what we can do to try to get as close as we can. And the other part of it is the rest of the guys have to step up. I mean, every player in offense has to be better without Marshall, especially every player on the offensive line coming back has to be that much better just to be the same. So it's really going to be on everybody's and it's going to be on all our shoulders to make that happen. And not just be the same, you know, we're going to try to improve. So we've got a lot of work to do with that.
Hi, guys. I think this is for Eric as much as I think John and Joe, maybe you've alluded to it a little bit. The disruptive nature of all of this, all of you are control freaks about what you do, and you're so good at what you do, and you've done the same thing for so long. When this happens, like using this Zoom, I know you guys are teched up. You're all in different places. Eric, can you speak to sort of being the general of running all of this where you're not flying off the pro days and spending nights in hotels and finding time in transit? There may be more time now, but how the disruption has made you maybe look at it differently, or how you're physically going about this on a daily basis that's the same but different.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, we all just get in routine and first couple of days, but once you kind of get into the routine of what we can control, which is basically just communicating first, evaluating the players properly, and then just kind of coming up with a game plan. That's all we can do. You know, all we can do is do what we can do. And so it hasn't been that bad, honestly. You know, I think in some ways, I would say getting used to the new combine schedule was more challenging than this. And so, you know, we're on the phone more. I think I'm on the phone a lot more than I have been. Normally people just walk into my office. Here they just call me. And, you know, I'm usually sitting right here watching tape, and that's just what we'll do. And, you know, when we find out how this thing's going to unfold over the next 17 days or whatever it is, we will have a plan, and we will have the best plan we can come up with to help our team so that our fans can be proud of the team.
Aditi?
Talk about face-to-face meetings, the pro days, the visits, having guys in your facility. In the past, how much have guys really moved up or down as a result of that? And are there guys this year that maybe are off your board because you couldn't look them in the eye and talk to them about whatever red flags you may have had?
That's a good question. I think, you know, there's going to be in this process probably some questions that we simply can't answer. And some of those questions may be about a player's personality, might be about an injury that the player sustained, could be a lack of a workout, whatever that might be. And we've got to figure out how do we value those unknowns and to what impact do those unknowns have on the process. And so that takes time. That's not easy for some of us that like to have as much information as possible. And it brings me back to what it was like in 1996 and 1997, really before the internet, before we had all this information, how we went about our jobs, before we had the chance to bring 30 players to Baltimore pre-draft to spend time with those guys. How do we accomplish our goals? And I think some of our best drafts we've ever had were during that time frame. So we know it can be done. And like John said, every team is operating under the same parameters and same rules. And so we've come up with a plan, we'll adjust, and we'll figure it out.
Bruce Cunningham? All right, Andrew Gillis?
Yeah, Eric, you mentioned earlier that this draft was deep in a lot of ways, and I know you mentioned receivers specifically. Are there any other position groups that you kind of view as maybe deeper than in other particular years?
Well, I think there's a good group of quarterbacks in this draft. Inside linebacker, I think running back is strong. I think corner and safety is strong. So, I think with the influx of juniors every year, we see that the drafts tend to be stronger. And I'd say the last 5 or 7 years than they have been. There's more prospects for us to look at, which is a great thing. We've got a bunch of guys this year. We feel like we'll have a really good opportunity with our first 7 picks to really get some outstanding football players that can come in immediately and pay dividends for us.
Yeah, John, when you're looking now at your ranking of players, how different is it now in this offense than it was maybe 5 years ago in that offense? Does it really play into where you slot different players because of how they fit into this offense?
That's a good question. I don't, Stan, to say the comparison and to say, well, it's different this way or that way, because for 5 years ago, I really haven't thought about it like that. So I can't really give you a straightforward answer. But I will say that the way we look at certain positions is a little bit different. Like, I think what we value in a certain position, probably offensive lineman we look at is a little different.
Mm-hmm.
Very interested in big physical offensive linemen, for sure. I mean, that's obvious. I think we're good run blockers because we're more of a run team than we've ever been before. Receivers that are willing to block, different types of receivers. We have different roles, and you, kind of your question, there's 53 roles you're trying to fill on a team. You're trying to build a roster through the draft. It's not so much, how you rank the league or how you rank the draft in terms of player value for the league and who's going to make it, who's going to not. It's really what's going to make your team better, this year and in the next couple of years. Short, probably term first, and then long term also. You got to think about both. But to me, you're drafting for your roster. You're drafting for the style of play that you're building in your team. So, yeah, I think it's changed in the sense of each position probably. Even defensively, we really want smart players. I mean, we want guys that can think and can process after the ball, as the offense lines up and makes formation changes, because we make changes. Then also once the ball snapped, to process what they see and react properly. Probably more so. That's always been part of it, but more so than ever before. We want smart players. So I think we just evolved, and we're just looking for certain traits in certain guys that match the style of football that we want to play.
Jimena?
Good morning, good afternoon. This question is for Eric DeCosta. What is a key into the players you are considering, and also how accurate is the information you're gathering from the draft this year?
Well, I think, in terms of what we're looking for with players is, obviously we want physically gifted guys, but we also want players that are really invested on field, off field character, guys that love the game, passion for the game. I think those would be things that, durability factors, and we need guys to be available to play on Sundays. And, it's been a little more challenging this year in terms of securing information. Fortunately, we've been able to rely on our scouts, who I think are the best in the league, and also our coaches and their networks of contacts and people that can get us information that help us with the decision-making process. And then also the fact that we've met with these players, and we're always trying to assess their personalities, their drivers, their motivations, their love of the game, determination, work ethic, and things like that. And so it all kind of plays together like a huge mosaic. And in the end, we'll look at that, we'll assess, and we'll find the best guys we can to make our team better.
All right, and so if you have a question, we have a couple more here. If you have a question, please raise your hand in the Zoom app. We'll go with Kevin Richardson right now.
Hey, this is for Joe. Joe, how tough is it going to be for guys from HBCU schools and for small schools to be able to make a roster this year, being as though they can get a chance to come in and be evaluated by you guys?
Well, I think with regards to really all schools, our scouts, scouts are at schools all throughout the fall and they're in they're in HBCUs, they're in D2s, they're in D3s. We got a number of guys that we've talked about over the course of this season, scouting season, from those types of schools. And so they've been evaluated. Maybe we haven't been to their pro days, but again, our scouts do a great job of getting information. We have the film on all of them. We're able to get the evals, and they're going to get the opportunities one way or the other, whether it's through being drafted or post-draft free agency. And really, our guys do a great job in that. Our coaches and scouts organizing that. Mark Acevedo puts it together, and we really get a good group of guys. We have a competitive rookie mini camp where guys get the opportunity to come in on a tryout basis. And so we're going to still attack it that way and hopefully dig some guys out that way that maybe not get drafted. And then obviously the guys that have draftable grades on, we'll give the full eval on minus a workout.
Hey, this is for John and Eric. Being thrown into sort of this whole virtual world of having to do business and communications. I think even John talked about finalizing the playbook virtually. Is there any concern or thought or conversation about the security of what you guys have to do now? And we've heard, issues with Zoom and some other, platforms. Security is always obviously a big deal, and your communications and what you guys are doing are very important. Have you guys dealt with that at all?
Yeah, big concern. My level of involvement has been every time I read something like the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times that talks about how messed up Zoom is, or some of these other deals like what came out this morning, I immediately text it to our IT people. And Nick Matteo is one of those guys, and they assure me that we are doing everything humanly possible. And I remind them that that's what Wells Fargo and all those other places said about our private information. So I've got some real concerns about that, and hopefully we'll be okay. That's kind of like that, we'll see what happens. I really wouldn't want the opposing coaches to have our playbook or our draft meetings. That would be preferable. We could stay away from that.
Kyle Barber. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Who was that?
I was going to just say I've got more confidence in Zoom than I do Ozzie and John and Steve and Dick with a copy of our draft board that they just like leave in their car in the front seat or something like that. So
that's funny. That's funny.
Kyle Barber.
Yeah, my question is for John. You mentioned the playbook is nearly complete. Is it normal to be completed by this time? And does having both coordinators from last season returning play a factor?
Yes and yes. It's complete in the sense that we have it ready for the off-season program. So we normally send our playbooks out to our guys right about now. And, they want to start studying them and they prepare for the off-season. So we'll send them out. Guys like Derek Wolf. I mean, Derek Wolf has been on me like a fly on something, man. He wants that iPad right now so he can start studying the new defense. But then really, and honestly, it's always changing. And that's the beauty of the way we do it now with technology, as Nestor was talking about. We change the notebook basically every day. I think our assistant coaches are kind of happy because I'm not walking into their office 3 times a day with ideas and making them redraw stuff, and change wording and stuff, or coming up with some half-baked idea that they've got to sift out and sort out and figure out if it makes any sense. So in that sense, it's a little harder to get to them. And they haven't really been calling me to ask, So I'm just going to have to figure out a way to torture them a little more with that stuff. But it is an ongoing process, and I'd say we're right on schedule.
Jerry Coleman. Jerry, we can't hear you. It looks like I don't have an audio thing up here, so you might want to connect to your audio. We'll go to Childs Walker.
Yeah, sorry, I had to unmute there. Just to follow up on what we were talking about earlier with the offensive linemen, and this is kind of more directed to Eric. John said that Marshall Leonda is irreplaceable. I mean, that's really not a surprise. When you listed the deepest positions in the draft, you did not mention interior offensive line. Do you see good depth there, and do you think you guys could get a player who could play right away on the first couple of days?
Oh, that's the plan. I think, yes. You've certainly got guys. I mean, there's some tackles that we think could play inside, play guard. you know, there are some really good guards, some centers in this draft. So I think we've shown in the past that we can find guys in the second, third, fourth, fifth round, offensive linemen who can come in and play. And we're fortunate. We've got a great coach in Joe D, who can develop younger players. And we've seen that over and over and over again. And we're excited about that. And, you know, we'll find some guys for sure.
Mark Viviano.
Hey, Eric, you've talked about how this kind of turns back the clock to the 90s, but as it is today, and you guys have had to rely more on this technology, one, how well suited were you going in? How much more have you had to learn? And are you hearing from any of your friends around the league who may have had more struggles than others?
Well, I think that just the only technology really that we're using is really Zoom. And, you know, we use that periodically. I mean, I spend most of my time just on the phone talking to people. You know, of course, you know, we're blessed, as I said earlier. We've gotten great setups so that we can watch video at home on our laptops, on monitors and things like that. So that's been, you know, very similar to what we have in the office from that standpoint. And we've got a great IT staff that can help us with all the different little quirks associated with technology. As far as the other teams, this is not typically a time where you spend talking with many other teams. Everybody's getting ready for their own draft boards and their own process, free agency in the draft. So I expect that, you know, over the next couple of weeks, we'll start to have more and more conversations as we start to look at game plan and strategy and trading up or down and all those kind of things. But I haven't spoken much to other teams. You know, I think everybody has their own personal feelings about this process this year and some of the challenges associated. But we've just been trying to keep as much in-house as we can, trying to get the board right, trying to get free agency to be as good as it could be, and just planning for the future.
All right, we're going to try Jerry Coleman one more time. If this doesn't work, Jerry, you're going to be responsible for no food in the media room on Wednesdays.
I'm sure that'll make everyone happy. Can you guys hear me?
No.
All right, good. Eric, two quick questions for you and then a follow-up lighthearted one for John. Eric, do you feel like this will separate a lot of the front offices, GMs, because of the limitations from each other in a draft such as this? And then as a follow-up, have you gone through different rehearsals in terms of if you have to operate of where you are right now or at the facility? And Coach Harbaugh, the follow-up would be, Eric mentioned the proximity you guys have. Have there been any like driveway conversations involving social distancing, maybe in the neighborhood at all, instead of over the phone?
Well, we think that we're blessed because we've got great scouts. And that's something that we've always taken pride in Baltimore. And we've also got a great coaching staff. And so for us, Jerry, the fact that our coaches and scouts communicate together as they do, we feel like that's a huge opportunity for us every single day. It's been that way for as long as I can remember. I'd like to think it's one of Ozzy's greatest strengths. And then John coming in and the synergy between those two guys. And hopefully it's as strong now as it's ever been. So we think that's a great opportunity for us. You know, we're excited about it. And, you know, that's not going to change.
For me, Eric and I have done all of it over the phone so far, and he's been great about picking up. Ingrid and I walk by the DeCosta house every day, like late afternoon on our walk, because they got a great street and it's very hilly. So Ingrid likes to get me on those hills. You know, she thinks it's really good for me. But I haven't seen Eric out there. Now, Eric tells me that he's been running, that he's been getting out and running because he's got to come up the hill to get to the main street to get on his run. He says he's usually exhausted by the time he gets up the hill, but I haven't seen him out yet. But we probably, knowing Eric, he'll give me a call and we'll probably take a walk here before the draft back. We got a bunch of woods behind us, so fields and stuff, and he'll probably take me out there and hopefully he won't get me lost and just leave me out there somewhere where I can't find my way back. But that's about it.
All right, Garrett Downing.
Hey, John, this is for you. You talked a lot about the challenges challenges and trying to figure out how things are going to get back to normal and when that's going to be. Regardless of when guys are actually back in the building, whether it's off-season program or training camp, is doing virtual team meetings something that you guys are looking into and figuring out the logistics of that?
Absolutely. Virtual team meetings, virtual strength sessions, virtual conditioning sessions. We're looking into all that, and based on when the league and the Players Association make agreements on what we're allowed to do, we'll have all that stuff ready to roll. So we're already building those meetings in all three of those areas. And I'm excited about it. I also know that our players are going to work. Our players are going to study. They're going to study football. They're going to train. They know if they don't train and they come back out of shape, it's not going to be much fun for them in training camp. I mean, nothing could be more miserable than a Raven not being in shape in training camp. That's pretty much well documented. So, and our guys like to train. They want to win. And if you want to win, you got to be a pro and you got to take care of yourself. I mean, I'd be shocked if any of our players don't have home gyms that they can train in. Absolutely shocked. I mean, you're a pro. So I don't know. It's not something we can ask them about right now. Well, I haven't asked them about them. I don't know what the rule is, but I don't want to break it if there is one. But I'm shocked if they don't have it, and expect them to be in great shape no matter what way it goes. And I know we're going to do everything we can to help them, relative to technology and the rules and however that works out. And that's what we're preparing for right now.